Hey guys, Tina here and welcome to another wrap-up. So I managed to read another 3 books that I want to talk about, and since I think this video might be slightly on the longer side, I'm just going to get into it. So the first book that I want to talk about is actually the last one that I finished, but it is an ARC copy that I received. I did receive it after it was actually already published, the book itself, so I could not have read it before then, but I do want to talk about it because it's a really rude people. It's a really exciting book. I think that a lot of you will like it, and that is actually The Seven Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle by Stuart Troughton. So this is a murder mystery, and honestly I debated on how much I want to tell you about it because personally I think it's best to go in it blind, or as blind as you can. So I will sort of talk about it in 2 segments. The first part is going to be for those that really want to go into it as blind as possible, and the second part is going to be a bit more detailed. So this is a murder mystery. It takes place in the 1920s, I would say, and it takes place at this party at the Blackheath Mansion. The Lord and Lady Hardcastle have organized this party for their daughter Evelyn, who has just returned from Paris, and the thing is, at the end of this day, Evelyn is going to be murdered, and we have this character who's trying to figure out who did it. So basically it's a really cozy sort of mystery that reminds you, or at least me, of Agatha Christie, and that's basically as much as I can tell you without going into more details. It's really easy to get into. One other thing that I want to mention before I get to the more detailed part is that I think that you should read this book not necessarily as quickly as you can, but in as little time as possible. I mean, you should not do what I did. Basically, I read the first 50 parts in small fragments, and that didn't help me because there's a lot of information that you receive and that you have to process, and before I next picked it up, I did forget a few things, and the last 50% that I read, I did sort of push through, and I read it in 2 sittings, and that was a lot better, and I did enjoy the book a lot more that way, and also, I retained a lot more of that information. So my opinion, you can of course read it however you want to. But yeah, now for those of you who do not want to learn more, just skip to the part where this cover is not going to be present on the screen, and watch the rest of the video. But for those of you who want to learn more, I will give a little more information about this book. So what I said already stands. A lot of people describe it, and I would have to agree with them, that this is a mixture sort of Agatha Christie and Groundhog Day, because you have that cozy, warm feeling when you read this book, and the setting itself is very similar to one of her books. At least I do remember reading one that was set in a similar setting, at least one, maybe more. I'm not sure, because it was a long time, since I read Agatha Christie. And we also have a character that is reliving this day over and over again, but the thing is that he's reliving it through different people, because he's jumping from host to host to host. So he's not there as himself, but he's seeing this thing happen from different perspectives, and as he goes for different hosts, he's trying to piece these things together, what is actually going on, how people are involved, what is happening, and I really enjoy that. And it's also exhausting in a way, because you're bombarded with so much information and you just have to piece it together. And honestly, even now that I'm done with the book, I'm still slightly confused about things that happened. And aside from the fact that there's a mystery about Evelyn Hardcastle's murder, there's also the mystery of what this person is even doing in this place trying to solve this. It's very intriguing, I have to say, and I really enjoyed it, especially, as I said, the last 50 parts when I just decided to push through. That was fantastic. And I sort of think that this is a book that you can reread and sort of find the different new hints and all that, and it will still be interesting. And I cannot even imagine how much attention and how much time and notes and whatever the author had to put into this thing to make it work. Aside from the main character that we follow, there's also a bunch of different characters. Also, obviously, all the hosts have different personalities, and there's also other people that are trying to help him or hinder him. And I like that. And as you go, you also realize that he is not in complete control of his hosts, which I found very, very intriguing, because you imagine if you sort of possess someone that they're going to be basically your puppet, and you're gonna order them around, but it was not necessarily the case. And it's interesting to see what that you are seeing is actually from this our main character, and what is from the host, how they affect the situation. And I really like that. And this book is definitely, I think, good for everyone that is into murder mysteries. And I think that it's already out in the UK and Australia. I think it's going to be out in US in September, and there's going to be called 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle. So you get a bit more, guys, apparently. But obviously you can buy it already in Book Depository or else somewhere else. I'm not sure. But I do recommend it. I really liked it, and I'm really happy that I was able to read it. The second book that I'm going to talk about is Elantris by Brandon Sanderson. I buddy read this with Haley from Haley Reads, and I will leave her channel up here so you can go check her out. This was also a reread for me. I have read this book before, I think about 2 years ago, and I did want to reread it because that's what I plan to do this year, and also next year I want to reread Brandon Sanderson's books. And this time around I decided to read it from this letterbound exclusive edition. It's a really beautiful, it has beautiful end pages inside, and they're all the previous covers of these book can you see it? They're inside. And it's really beautiful. There's additional 10,000 words in this book that gives additional information about this world that I really did like. And there was also some changes to the text itself, as well as the maps. Wait, there's one here, if I can find them. So they are more consistent, and they fit better with the story. And I just love it. And of course this edition is also signed because that's how I ordered it. And now I'm really tempted to get the first two Mistborn books in this editions as well, but we shall see about that. Anyways, I have to say that I love this book even more the second time around reading it than the first time. This story takes place in a world that is divided between different kingdoms and empires, and the majority of the story takes place in Arelon, which is a kingdom. And it's also the place where Elantris, the city of gods, is situated. And Elantris is a special place. It's a place that was magnificent. You know, the stone walls were shining, it was bright, it was beautiful. Elantrians were tall, they had silvery skin and bright white hair, and they were able to perform magic, and they were just revered as gods, and some of them even considered themselves gods, of course, some not. And then 10 years ago this event happened, and Elantrians lost their power. Elantris itself started crumbling, and it's filled with grime and slime, and it's just not a very beautiful place anymore. Elantrians themselves, they're still there, but they're nothing like the way they used to be. They have these black splotches on their skin, they get old and wrinkly, and their hair falls off. And the thing is, the beauty of Elantrians was in that anyone can one day wake up and become one of them, because you never know who was going to become an Elantrian. So it was really special, and everybody would be happy 10 years ago to become one, and these days not so much, because they're now frowned upon and not like they're shunned. And basically whenever somebody wakes up to become an Elantrian, they're basically shipped off to Elantris and just locked in there, and the rest of the population sort of tries to forget about them. So things have changed. Arelon has become a kingdom, and it is not doing that well politically and financially. And it's actually the story of three characters that we follow, and the first of those is Raoden. He is the crown prince of Arelon, and one day he does wake up as an Elantrian, and he is just as, you know, every other person to which that happens. He is basically locked into Elantris. His father is ashamed of that fact, and he basically pronounces Raoden dead, and they have this funeral and everything. And we follow Raoden as he's trying to figure out Elantris and make a life for himself there. And I read Brandon Sanderson said that he was trying in Raoden portray just a character that is good, that has no difficult background, that, you know, had a pretty charmed life. Yes, there were some issues here and there, but all in all he doesn't have a lot of baggage, and he's very optimistic, and he's a very likable character. Maybe he's actually sometimes feels like too good, and maybe people don't like him because of that, I'm not sure, but I did. He's very likable and he's very optimistic, and he tries to gather people together and rally them to see the good side of life, to to be good, optimistic, and just not get all sad and everything. And he's really good at rallying people, as I said, and just making them follow him. And I really loved him as a character. And he was definitely my favorite character the first time I was reading this book. And this time around, I have to say that I appreciated the other two main characters a lot more than I did the first time. One of them is Serene. She is a princess of Teod, so another kingdom. And she comes to Arelon expecting to become Raoden's bride. And as she comes off the ship, she's informed of the fact that Raoden has died, and because of that, she's basically now a widow, because the treaty that they signed basically stated that this, even if the marriage itself was not performed, officiated, not official, anyways, there was no ceremony, even if one of them dies, the other will be considered to have been married to this person. So I'm not sure if I've explained that correctly, or correctly it was, but logically. Anyways, and she suddenly finds herself to be a widow, and in this kingdom that she knows basically very little about. I mean, she knows it from the books and all that, but not firsthand. And now she's discovering it firsthand, what is wrong with this kingdom, what is good, what is going on, and what needs to be fixed. And she sort of immerses herself into this new situation, and she's very good at it. Because the thing is, she sort of has this duality to herself. On one side, she's very strong, confident, she knows her politics, she knows how to be a diplomat, how to convince people. She can be also a bit manipulative, not in the bad way, but just when she wants to achieve certain things and convince people of stuff. But on the other hand, she's very unsure of herself. She considers herself awkward and not very pretty, and she believes that people don't like her. And throughout the book, we see her sort of grow out of that and grow into herself even more. And I really liked her. I really loved her chapters. She made some great connections, and the people that she surrounded herself with were just fantastic. And then we have Hrathen, who is a priest from the Fjordell Empire, and he has come to Arelon to convert its people. The thing is that he sees himself as a savior. He wants to convert them in order to prevent the war, because he knows that if that happens, there's going to be a lot more casualties and it's going to be bloody, and he wants to prevent that. And in that regard, he sees himself as a savior. He's also very conniving, very manipulative, and you cannot help but think of him as a bad guy. And generally speaking, I guess he is. If you see things from his perspective, you see that what he believes actually sort of makes sense, and that, I guess, is what kind of, sort of what villains should be like. And he sort of has the greatest character arc, because you see him struggle with his faith, and he's trying to figure out how he feels about it, actually, sort of. And he goes for this great development phase, and I just really enjoyed him a lot. And at the end of the day, you see that there's worse things than him in this world, and I just really enjoy them. All in all, this is definitely probably not my favorite, because we know that this is not my favorite Brandon Sanderson book, but it's definitely worth reading. It's very political. There's very little action except towards the end. Even the magic doesn't play that much of a part in it, because Raoden is, trying to figure out what went wrong with the magic throughout the book, and he cannot really use it. That's what I'm trying to say. And all in all, I just really enjoyed it, and I'm really happy that I reread it, and I will continue on now with the 2 novellas from Arcanum Unbounded that are connected to this world. I already read previously The Emperor's Soul, but I will reread it, and I think there's also Hope of Elantris that I have yet to read. And I'm really happy. I love reading his books. His writing may not be the most flowery and pretty, but I really enjoyed it. It's really easy to get into, and he's so quotable. I just underline things left and right, and I'm a fan anyways. But yeah, it was a great read, and I'm really happy that I got around to reading it. And the last book that I want to talk about is Scythe by Neal Shusterman, which is book 1 in the Arc of Scythe trilogy. And this book takes place in our future. It's sort of a utopian society, I would say, where there's no crime, there's no death, people are able to live forever, they're able to rejuvenate themselves, and because the population is still growing, of course you have to have an institution that would sort of kill some people off, so you know there's only so much place on Earth, and that institution is Scythes, and it is a group of people that actually go around and kill people for whatever reason, or however they decide which person should be killed, and it's actually called gleaning, so it's not killing or anything like that. And we also follow Rowan and Citra. They are two young people that are recruited to become apprentices to one of the Scythes, and we follow the training, and we also get immersed into the world of Scythes and their institution and just how they work. And we also see different perspectives because Scythes, of course, follow their own views and they have different opinions regarding how many gleanings one should do, how you should decide who to glean and all that. And there are quite a lot of clashes between them because there's like the old school people and the new guard that has different views from the old ones, of course. And I found it very interesting because the thing is, with people, every institution that we have, there's going to be problems and there's going to be clashes and there's going to be bad things happening sooner or later because we're just humans. And this is nothing different here, and I really like that. The story itself, I sort of expected to like it a bit more than I did. I did like both of the characters that we follow. Citra is a very strong girl. She is very moral and she sort of knows what path she wants to follow. Rowan is, because of what happens, he's a bit more conflicted, but so far it looks like he's going to do a good job of everything that he experienced and had to go through. He's sort of holding in there, but of course it did affect him. I honestly can't say more about it. I did enjoy it. It was a fast read, and it does have this interesting idea and premise, and of course my personal opinion is that humans should not live forever because that's not the purpose of life. Of course science does tend to go in that direction, or at least they express that they want to go there. I don't know, I just don't think that's good. So far I've had a few old people in my life, and of course, yeah, they weren't healthy, so maybe if they had a different, if they were, maybe they would feel differently, but none of them wanted to live forever, so they just, you know, maybe wanted to die at some point. But anyways, I don't know, we shall see, I guess, what the future brings, and I'm not actually sure right now whether or not I'm going to continue on with the series. It's definitely a fun one and a quick one. And I am sort of intrigued to see what happens next, but we shall see. I have so many other books right now that I have to read that one is really not a priority. But yes, those were all the books that I managed to read, and until next time, bye!